Hello, welcome. Simon here, one of the lay ministers in Portishead, and I'm speaking to you from inside St. Peter's Church, just off the High Street. If you're watching on Thursday the 2nd of February, then happy Candlemas. Some of you may know that February the 2nd, that Candlemas is often associated with weather predictions, and in the USA it's even known as Groundhog Day. But of course, Candlemas is a lot more than just about the weather. One tradition in some countries is to cook a pancake today, holding a coin in one hand. That is to symbolise wealth and happiness in the year ahead. But of course, Candlemas is a lot more than that. It goes back to a story in Luke chapter 2, as shown by this lovely window, which is behind me, about the presentation of the baby, Jesus, in the temple. Now, we focused on the story in the parish last Sunday, but it really is a lovely picture of all the ages being together in a place of worship. If we hadn't focused on the story in Luke 2 last Sunday, we'd have had the gospel from John chapter 2, the changing of the water into wine at a wedding. It's a very powerful story where Jesus changes the water, which symbolises the old ways of connecting with God, into wine, a symbol of the new ways of connecting with God. Now, Jesus doesn't just turn a small amount of the water, enough for the toasts. He changes bucketfuls, or stone jarfuls, as it says in the Gospel. This symbolises the big truth of his grace, his love that is overflowing, that is abundant, that is more than enough for everyone. So how do we respond to this grace? Simeon in the temple praised God and saw that Jesus would go beyond human boundaries, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, as he said. Anna in the temple prayed, watched and waited. She was 84 when she saw the infant Jesus, and then told all the people she could. John Newton experienced a real change in his life, from slave trader to abolitionist, from atheist to a member of the clergy. And he wrote the hymn Amazing Grace about his experiences. John's Gospel tells of an encounter with Nicodemus after the turning of the water into wine. Jesus tells Nicodemus that he needs to let the Holy Spirit lead him into how he sees other people and situations. And it may not be the same way as he has seen people in the past. Now, we know that the grace of God is not cheap grace. It cost God the Father the death of his precious Son, Jesus. Grace is freely given to us, but it may involve cost as well. Now, this is a special week in the Diocese of Bath and Wells. It's called Everyday Faith. Now, you can say everyday in two ways. It could be said like you mean every day, commonplace, ordinary. For many, it's certainly easier to worship not in an everyday place, but in a church or cathedral, where the surroundings really help you to focus on God. Another version of everyday is that we need to concentrate on the faith that we exhibit every day. Now, that's a challenge, isn't it? Being a faithful believer wherever we find ourselves from Monday to Saturday. This year's Everyday Faith theme is growth. So how might we grow in our faith? Here are a few suggestions. Do let me know what happens if you try one out. So specifically, try praising God for the good things in your life. You might find it helpful to think of when a lack of wine was transformed for you, or you might like to compare your life when you were an unbeliever to now. That's sort of hashtag be more Simeon or be more Newton. If you want to hashtag be more Anna, then you could try speaking more about your faith in your everyday life. May I suggest one thing for all of us to try, though? And that will be hashtag be more Nicodemus. We did not earn God's grace, so we could recognize that by freely paying it forward. Could you put something extra in the food bank collection? Speak to the obviously lonely or isolated on the high street or outside the school, or volunteer in a shortage area. How about reaching out to someone where you need to make the first move? Whatever you do, you might want to stay in your comfort zone. But remember, God's grace is not cheap grace. So allow the Holy Spirit to guide and to strengthen you as you think on these things. So hashtag be more Nicodemus. God bless.